Well, it's been a while since I've had the opportunity to do one of these, but I am very thrilled right now to announce that I'm going to be interviewing Rivington III here for a Making the Cast episode. Thank you so much, Rivington, for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So let's get right into it. I always like to talk a little bit about your past and how you ended up where you are today at the start of these. So first off, how did you end up getting into gaming and video games and all this kind of thing?
So in the beginning, I was always a console gamer, stayed with cartridges. My friend down the street, he would have gotten PlayStations, whatever. He had the discs, so we'd trade back and forth. That's how I got kind of competitive in games. I really like to set up like maybe a FIFA bracket or something with him, and we'd go through that the entire day, playing one sole team to the end to see if it would win. That kind of started a competitive nature. I was also into sports and whatnot, so I really thought of teams as a cool thing when I started video gaming. In about 2000, I got the ability to start with teams when I played Counter-Strike. First time I installed it on my computer, unfortunately, it crashed it for like a day and a half, and I wasn't very good with computers at the time, so my parents were like, don't touch it, don't do anything, until we just turn it off and turn it back on. I figured out how to install it. I think 2 years later was when I did it. And I kind of wonder what would have happened in those 2 years if I was already getting into things, because there was a pause in my life. I just focused on sports, other stuff, more on school and whatnot. And I hadn't been doing too much gaming between like 2000 and 2002. That's when I got into Counter-Strike a lot. I started hearing people commentate over IRC Winamp channels because they would just set up a podcast or whatever at the time and start commentating. And I was like, this is amazing. Whoever is doing this, I think it was a GBL commentator at the time, Game Broadcast Live. She would completely paint the picture for me. And I was amazed by that. And I was like, I think I can do this.
Yeah, how did you find out about, because for me it was interesting, like I had played PC games for a long time, but it took a friend sort of introducing me to the whole idea of like competitive stuff over in Brood War and StarCraft in Korea. How did you get introduced to the whole like casting and competitive nature of these games after you started playing the game?
At first it was through IRC, but I had an 800 megahertz computer with a 13 gig hard drive, and I was like, I'm never going to be able to commentate. I can't kind of keep MP3s on there for music. I can't have a processor to even play the game, record, and push it out to people. So I just watched. I listened, I watched, I learned. I played more Counter-Strike myself so I would get better at it, and to a point where I just started going to the websites that I figured out were kind of the compendiums of where I wanted to be, the people I wanted to surround myself with. And at the time it was GotFrag. And once we got into GotFrag, I started voicing that I kind of wanted to commentate here and there, and I was going under the, not moniker, my name, I was going under Bruce, just Bruce at the time. And it was very slow at the beginning. It was casting through Ventrilo, I think is how we started it.
And so this was, were you in like high school at this point, or what, paint me a picture.
It was towards the end of high school, and there was a point when like my friends, they were doing more sports now. I had kind of sectioned off. I had met a guy in a tech drawing class that was also really into video games. He ran a Counter-Strike server from his house, so we'd start doing LANs at his place. I'd drive 20 minutes out into the boonies and we'd just hang out, and we'd stay there for the weekend and just play games over and over. Then we started Rumbles, where his stats would be saved, and it turned into this whole community that I started to be a part of. And that's when I realized, like, this is what I want to do. Some of my friends are out playing, but a lot of them I can connect with immediately when I get home right here. And that started to really grow my love and passion for video games and why I wanted to stay with it.
A lot of commentators started off playing competitively. Did you ever compete?
So I love the beginning of how Counter-Strike started gaming for me. There was a group of guys that we had. Two of them were in Fargo, North Dakota. They were cousins. Like I said, my friend was in the boonies where I lived, and then the two other were just a town over. I met those guys at a LAN center with my friend from the boonies, and then the guys from Fargo, North Dakota played on my friend's server. Eventually, that just started to roll into a team, and for 5 years, 5 straight years, we had the same Ventrilo server, and all of us would be on it after. People would come onto the team and leave, but those 5 core players stayed. And we were an amazing bunch of friends. We did a 22-hour drive to North Dakota to hang out with those guys for a while. It really started to get that competitive edge that I was looking for into place. So they moved from North Dakota to New York, and we started doing some LANs. We got as far as, I would say, Cal P, right, at the time. Cal Invite was the highest. Cal P is kind of right below that.
Okay, so this for like league fans, this would be like Challenger or?
At the time, it would probably be Challenger. Cal P right now probably has fallen down a bit with just how good everybody has gotten. But yeah, I guess it would be Challenger.
So you're on this team. You've got these guys, and you're kind of doing this stuff. Is this at what point does it transition from you playing, or had you been kind of commentating this whole time, right?
Commentate a little bit in between. I feel like it was more of we won a few tournaments, and the team, I think, into the 5 years of playing, this is now 2006, 7, there had already been commentating, but the team we won a tournament against missed me at the time, who was actually a pretty good team, not like LCS level, Cal Invite, but still the Cal Premier level. And we were like, oh my God, this was great, but we hadn't gotten a lot of victories before, so it was more of our shit doesn't stink, we don't need to practice as much, things are getting easier, and we almost kind of fell apart. Yeah. Started doing more of our own things because we didn't have to practice as much. And that's when I started to turn to casting. I figured, if I can't be in one of those chairs on the stage, I'm going to be in this chair still presenting. Yeah.
So you start doing more commentating, more casting. At what point in your life is this? Is this still like late high school or fresh out of it?
This is late high school, where my friends were kind of like, yeah, that's cool. It probably won't amount to anything. We're still just going to keep playing. And I tried to get a bunch of them on board. By this time, I was doing, trying to make frag videos, because maybe I'd go in the production side and make a few bucks off of doing, just frag shots for professional players, and then maybe put commentary on that, so it's a double package. Yeah. And I just I had to figure out where I wanted to go with it. And commentating became one of the easiest things because I love talking about the game, and it's already what I wanted to do once I first saw it on IRC and on the WinApcast.
So at this point in time, what does, like for you, at that point in time, what did commentating look like? Because I think, obviously it's very different than what you're doing now, right?
Yeah. Commentating was, I think I actually kind of skipped the WinApp era a little bit. I may have done a few on that. And when I did commentary for GotFrag, Counter-Strike events, we would open up a Ventrilo server. Okay. At the time it was maybe 100, then 200, 300, 500, up to like 800 once we opened it up to 1,000 people. But it was actually a really cool atmosphere, being so tight-knit. It was like going to one of your favorite band's shows, but it's like 1,000 people, right? Yeah. It's very close and intimate. And there would be 5 mods in the top of the Ventrilo server, and then everybody else would kind of be muted, but they could still comment if there was a poll, a question, or what pro would you want to come and cast next. And it was such a close interaction. I mean, now you have Twitch chat, but that's 150,000 people commenting
Kappa.
at the time. So Kappa.
Yeah.
Kappa PJ Saul.
Yeah, so I know that there's kind of this whole backstory and back history of American esports that people don't tend to talk about too much with all this kind of stuff. So how did you switch over into... Like, what came for you after this sort of Ventrilo age?
After the Ventrilo age, people wanted to do more on-site things, but it really wasn't an option yet without having the funding, the money to do it. I mean, teams are even still trying to get sponsors to get a server, a 10-person server with a few spectator slots.
So you're talking about like live events. People wanted to do live events.
That was really the biggest way to, I don't even not get your name out there, but start a bigger community for yourself. People would watch it online and be like, that's cool. But when you got to go to an event and build bridges, it became one of the biggest things to make esports bigger. Talking over a few emails is really hard to do all the time. But once you can go to the event, start understanding how somebody is trying to build out, the product that they have, people started to figure out where esports wanted to go. And we figured out we didn't need sponsors right away if we were able to kind of put on a good show, even if it was in a basement. Yeah. And the basement became a tough thing for some people because it stayed there for a while.
So what kind of productions were you a part of, or what was this whole sort of basement era?
In the beginning, our basement era that I started with was we sent a small webcam package out to a number of LAN centers around the United States, and the LAN centers named themselves, and they became part of the NEL, the National Esports League at the time. And it was a Counter-Strike gaming league that I first started. That was my first commentary for online that was also visual, and everybody was kind of watching the game in a way that it was broadcast. And we were trying to do this through a control center in Europe, pushed back to us for a 24-hour stream. And it was kind of the first time it ever happened. It was really cool, because we would replay games after that and whatnot, and we're like, we're on the forefront of this. But we still weren't getting any views. It was kind of crazy, right? It would be the few friends, and then the people you tell them about, or the people that are told about that, and then a few more that pile on that it might be family members. So it was discouraging at first.
So there's this whole crew of like Wheat, DJ Wheat, and Seltzer, and yourself, and all these kind of people that, I came onto the scene myself only just 4 years ago, but you guys have gone way further back. How did you meet all these guys? What were you involved in? What's the story behind all this?
Oh man, it's so funny. So I didn't know Rachel before I knew who DJ Wheat was. Rachel is
Seltzer. We should say.
Seltzer, yes, I should say Seltzer. I met her in WCG events from 2009 to 2011. Before understanding who DJ Wheat was, I didn't like the guy. I didn't like him very much. I was like, man, this guy, swears. He brings the wrong kind of style to the cast. But I was just actually out of the realm myself. I didn't actually know what kind of style I wanted. So I actually didn't really want to be friends with DJ Wheat in the beginning. Now he's one of my closest friends that I could ever have in the world, and he's a fantastic person. But getting to know people in the gaming industry is a very different thing, I would say.
But what kind of events and productions were all you guys a part of? Because I know that at some point in time, like WCG starts happening, and so did you guys all just sort of become a crew based out of this, or were you sort of part of this next step of esports altogether? I mean, what's sort of the thing that brought you guys all together? And
WCG in the end was what brought us all together. They were the first kind of organization that could put a lot of games under one umbrella and allow those to work at an event, especially in the fighting games, and then bringing in racing games and even Guitar Hero and whatnot. They went for everything, which brought all those commentators together in an environment they usually would be very far apart from each other in. I mean, I think MLG is the most recent ones that even put, shooting, League, and StarCraft back together. And still haven't been towards an event. So those moments of actually WCG being able to bring together all the gaming communities helped the commentators connect. And that's what I was saying about building bridges earlier. It's one of the biggest things in esports, and it helps catapult everything if the bridges are built between the people that want esports to grow. I mean, that sounds obvious, but there's a lot of people out there with a big voice that can just make a quick change like that, and a lot of people will follow. It gets out much bigger now with the internet.
No, I completely agree. I know that for a lot of events, a lot of people see it and they say like, oh, this is a really cool event, like, get to see all this tournament, get to see these great games and the great commentary. But I know that you are very correct when you say that these are also like great places for people to network and meet up and have kind of those like after event discussions over beer of like, what should we do next, or arguments about what's happening.
There's so many cool talks that go on there. They're like, are they going to do like a players union now? What would ever happen if they did this? Or it's just like you talk game politics. It's great. You just sip on your beer, like you said.
So then you were at WCG and you were commentating.
We did a few. So in my early years of commentating for World Sour Games, it was like super rough. I actually got pretty walked on with the company I went in with. The guy I worked for was very nice. He was younger than me. He, like they say, he could sell ketchup popsicle to a woman in white gloves, could really talk the talk, and is actually, it's kind of a good story, is the reason I'm where I am today, but I don't like the guy whatsoever for what he did to me. He would take money for events and give me like a tenth of what was going to the event, and I found this out after he kind of had a snafu at one of our WCGs.
You?
He was the lead. He was the owner of our company, the one that was first, going around and whatnot. So I was kind of like jaded at that point. I was like, how many people in this environment want to do this? And I found out not very many.
Yeah.
So when I talked, straight to WCG, they were like, actually, these are the deals, and this is how it should happen. And I figured out that when starting, and this is for any commentator, know what you're worth and know what you can get out of your style. And make sure you have a style that you can project and whatnot, because people will try to take advantage of you. It's
interesting because it kind of reminds me, I was kind of just on the edge of this, I feel, before things start to get pretty professional. And obviously, there's still some shady stuff that happens in esports, but you mentioning that it reminds me of all these times back before, back in those days when there were just so many people kind of taking advantage of other people, and it was kind of like the Wild West of esports, wouldn't you agree? Yeah, it really was. Yeah. You were kind of like snake oiled into doing something, and then nothing came of it at the end, and it was very easy to do that, especially when events started. I think for maybe the first 4 years of when I started being behind camera, I wasn't getting paid anything, and that also was on me, but
I was worth more, and I should have known that. So I kind of let myself get walked down. But you're right. People would somewhat, go in, say this at an event, but then if you're not going to see them for a long time, it's very easy to say this.
So many stories of paychecks for tournament winnings and stuff getting to players like half a year or a year later, et cetera. It's nice to see.
It happens on the commentator end as well.
Yeah.
At some WCG events, because of all, a different country, then to taxes, and to this, it would be 7-8 weeks, maybe 9, few months. It's crazy.
So I know this was kind of talked about in your feature that LOL Esports did. Great feature. People can check it out. But what transitioned you over into working at Riot Games?
So I didn't really know where I wanted to go with commentating. I knew WCG heard rumors of WCG closing its doors in 2010 in the United States because just the showing that year wasn't as big. There was almost more players attending than there were attendees in LA, one of the kind of bigger areas they thought that people would be able to allocate to. So I was kind of ready to make a jump, whether it was going to be something for myself or something for a company. I was always very big on not wanting to sit behind a desk and work for somebody. I like doing things on my own. And I still found that I could get that at Riot. And a good friend of mine, Neha Nair, Renoa, she's also from the East Coast crew that really helped, get esports off the ground as well in that area in Jersey with Seltzer, to them. Invited, she's like, you want to do player support over at Riot. We still need some people. It's a growing team. I think there were maybe 20 people on it. There was a game and account team, a tech team, and a billing team. And
this is like 5 years ago, right?
Yeah, it's 2011. February 7th is when I started. Okay, so that was, I was the fourth person on game and account. And I thought to myself, I'm like, I've been working 10 years at a grocery store, from 15 to 25. Front end, pushing carts, stocking, yogurt in the back, whatever. Everybody was here is that. Love the yogurt. It's delicious. Yeah. But I thought to myself, I'm like, another customer support, player support position, is that really where I want to go? And it was actually on the exact path I wanted to follow, no matter what. I had a great background in helping people. I love to also do that, so continue to do so in an environment that I love even more, and I want to be in every day.
So that you were actually, while you were commentating, doing the stuff for WCG, and sort of growing this whole career for yourself, you were actually working at a grocery store.
Yeah. I have to thank them so much because I could walk in there with my varsity soccer schedule for high school and give it to them, and they'd schedule me around it. Or I'd be like, hey, I'm leaving for a few weeks. Even one time I was like, when I thought that the gentleman who helped me get started said, hey, we might be able to add salaries. How does 40,000 start? To somebody who's still in high school, kind of. I was like, yeah, man, that's fantastic. I work at a grocery store, make $11 right now. So I told the grocery store, I'm like, 2 weeks, man. 2 weeks. Yeah. And then I obviously figured out that fell through like a week later when I wasn't getting any emails back. And they were like, don't worry, not a problem. Just come on back. Paperwork hasn't even been done yet, and it wouldn't have been a problem. So a lot of credit goes to them for me being able to follow a path that I did. And that's weird to say for a grocery store.
Well, it's kind of a reminder that it's only been a recent advent that a lot of people can, or that there are a decent amount of people now that can commentate as a full-time gig, because you were doing this and then still working at the grocery store. It's pretty
it was different. It was also a bit discouraging because you'd see the same faces come through and they'd be like, how are things? And you're like, oh no, I'm still, traveling and doing whatnot. And they walk away and they're like, are you still stocking yogurt? And you're like, someday, it's coming.
And look at you now.
It's coming.
So you take this player support position at Riot, and I guess you move across the country, right? Because you were in Jersey at the time?
Yeah, I got the call. So it was from about November process to December interview, and I was a little worried because it was the holidays and things were taking longer, and I'm like, they're just not going to work. Then maybe it's the holidays, maybe it'll take some time.
I think this is the story every Riot recruit has said, is that it takes a little frustrating and nerve-wracking.
It takes a little time. Yeah. And then December 7th, I flew in for my interview. It was pretty great. I remember a few people walking in, didn't even have shoes on. It was just like an awesome atmosphere. They were taking each other's glasses off during the interview. It was really great. It felt good to be here, and it was an environment that I wanted to put effort into, for sure.
Was this at the old office over in Culver City?
This was at the Culver City office.
Okay, so 2 offices ago, we should say. So really old school then in terms of Riot.
Very much so.
And so had you played, because you were a Counter-Strike guy, but now you're suddenly working at this League of Legends company.
Yep. I had reached 30.
Okay.
I was trolled in the beginning by the friends that I was playing with. They told me to play Garen by a keyboard with R. just on the middle of it and just keep going, spin to win. And I was like, this is great, this is funny. And I learned Kennen, started getting better. I think it took about 2 months, I think it was. Me and Freak would do the patch previews and whatnot. We'd wake up like 4:30 in the morning, go into the office, run around, show off a new champion. And Tammet said, DreamHack's coming up, and Freak kind of needs somebody to commentate with. It could have been somebody else in the company, or Freak maybe would have done a solo at the time, or maybe, oh no, he would have done it with Dan McClain, done on the Stoic. Yeah, just from EU. But then we had a 3-caster team that we went to Europe with, and that was, at the time, the pinnacle of commentating. I don't even know what that's going to be now. I don't even have a mark for that, because it's still going up, but that was huge.
So how did you end up getting involved with the content stuff? Because obviously, I don't think that was the job description of player support representatives at the time to do content with Freak, right?
I think it was just a simple idea of, the patch guys are releasing things or kind of working on stuff at 4 in the morning. They're down on the bottom floor doing stuff because everybody has different hours you're working. When they were doing the releases, everything's much more smooth now. But yeah, it would be like kind of in and out at any time of the day when it started. And they were like, why don't we show this off to the people that are watching? And it was 4 in the morning, so who's going to be watching, right? Only a few hundred people at the time, but it was still worth it. It was a little bit of practice. It was us getting knowledge of the champions, and it was riot culture. It was having fun no matter what, enjoying that fun with the community, even if it was at 4 a.m.
So then you head off to DreamHack to cast the Season 1 Finals.
Yeah.
Now, in my mind, Season 1 Finals is actually a very sort of momentous event for me because I've been following StarCraft 2 esports for a long time, but played tons of League. And I think the Season 1 Finals at DreamHack, that was the first glimpse I had of like, actually, wait, there's actually a real esport here. Like, this is going to be something big. And I remember seeing over on Own3D TV, rest in peace, like it breaking 100,000 viewers, which at the time was crazy. I think
wild.
StarCraft was occasionally doing that. Yeah. So what was that? I mean, this was me watching at home before I'd even started doing any content, before I'd met Double Lift. What was that experience like for you? Because you were there in Sweden, seeing all this sort of, in my mind, like the revolution began.
It was ridiculously amazing. While being on cloud 9 of being at the event I've wanted to be at, the largest LAN ever, it was crazy to see how many people actually knew and loved League of Legends and wanted to talk about League of Legends and just not want to be there to view it. They wanted to interact. They wanted to get interaction with the players, figure out what they were about, what their road to get there was. I saw a lot of conversations of just sincerity between players and fans because it was the first time. Now it's a little harder. It's like it's lines and signings because of the amount of people that are here. But to see how close and intimate that event was super touching, and it probably won't happen again, but I'll always remember those moments. And knowing that League of Legends was able to get a main stage as well for their finals, it felt like we were growing, and we were growing at a pace where we could follow that. Maybe not the commentary. It was the birth of Rivington. Freak and I were on 13-hour casting days, and there were just, at the end of it, kind of just muddle coming out of our mouths. But we gave it our all. So did the fans, and so did the players, and it was an amazing event that's led to a lot more for esports. I mean, it's not even about the money anymore, right? That's not even mentioned. Before it was the $100,000, but it's about the victory of the teams now. Yeah. The stories that are created there.
And so for you, like at that event after it, did you say like, okay, I'm going to become a commentator now, or what were the conversations happening? Were you like, I want to be a part of this as you do more?
That transition was actually pretty difficult. I mean, even if you go back and watch Jats making the cast, he discusses the time put between both design and casting. And the same thing was for player support and casting. I would come back from an event, and there were times when, I would get pulled in and say, there's a bit of a lack on the ramp-up time coming back into tickets. And while, that's completely on me, I would have to come in, get done with casting, and do as many tickets as I could while doing them correctly. I handled permanent suspensions, so I couldn't let them sit there for too long. So that actually became a little hard to juggle.
Yeah, that is crazy to me, because I remember, like, knowing that you were actively answering player support tickets and all that stuff while doing casting, and now the whole idea of that seems, I think, so bizarre, right? Yeah. Like, no one would ever expect, like, oh, yes, and then Jet's over in player support, doing, kind of customer service type work. It's a very different world. Why wasn't there just an immediate jump? Was it just there wasn't a lot of casting at the time, or?
There wasn't management structure there for it. It kind of would have been us maybe sitting in front of a computer figuring out what to do all day by ourselves. There wasn't a story meeting to be had to create, what's, the points between tip versus TL this week. There wasn't enough structure around that to give 40 hours a week to commentating. So it still had to be split. And I think it was the right decision that they made. It may have taken a little longer finding the right people, but still the right decision.
Yeah. At what point did you stop doing player support work?
Was it I think it was October of 2013, or a little bit before that, I believe.
That's
kind of like a transfer, the full transfer over to commentating for everyone.
So that's like around season 3 time?
Yeah. Like right after the Worlds and whatnot, we decided to move up to the live design area, get all the casters in one spot. We started bringing on more people. Kobe had been brought onto the team and whatnot as well from him doing the TSM tournaments a little bit on Twitch. So we started to have a team that actually, while working with each other, could also start to provide the time needed to slot in 40 hours for casters.
Now, was there, and as you referenced earlier, Jat's making the cast, that he had to make this kind of decision between, do I want to become like a full-time caster? Because he was also doing sort of design and balance work. Was there for you any doubt in your mind? Like, do I want to commit myself full-time to this, or was it like, go?
My interview, I remember coming into Riot, was, where do you want to be in 5 years? And I told him, if I'm still answering player support tickets in 5 years and, maybe commentating on the side, that's perfectly fine. If I'm fully commentating, I would absolutely love to do that. So I knew and know I still want to commentate now and after this.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit before we get into the season 3, you becoming full-time. What was season 2 like for you? Because it's kind of fun to talk to people, because I have my own perspective on just how crazy this growth has been, and going from, like, again, watching DreamHack to seeing this happen at LA Live, and then the next year it's like actually in Staples Center. So what was the whole season 2 thing like for you as you started to travel more and go to more events and start seeing like what this is really growing into?
It was absolutely crazy. Knowing that League of Legends had the capacity to be on stages around the United States, around the world now in different regions, and the people that came out was astonishing. Like, people were stealing seats from other games at MLG and whatnot to watch, and they were like, nope, can't do that. But yeah, standing room only at all of these events, and it was absolutely mind-blowing. I kind of think, and I almost still do, that like there's going to be this big meeting called, and they're going to say, all right, everybody, we actually don't have any money. It's been a good run.
Yeah.
It's just too good to be true.
Yeah.
Right?
It's just a dream. It's like you wake up and you're like, oh, I had this dream. I was a esports commentator full-time and working at the studio, and it was all just too much.
Yeah.
So now you're in season 2, you're commentating all this stuff. Did you ever think, I don't know, what was it like interacting with the players back then? Because I think it's so strange to see where they are now compared to that.
It was really weird. Only recently have we kind of gotten the dugout type of feel with the players, where we can go in, chat, not in their player rooms, but if they're walking in the hallway, chat with them, and they're not just going to think you're going to ask them things about League of Legends, right? Yeah. They've become more than a face in a KDA in a summoner name. In the beginning, it was very hard to talk to them. They wanted to be shy. They didn't know. They figured a commentator just wants to hear stuff about the game, the strategy, and whatnot. There was just a really big wall between us that has been broken down, mainly because a lot of the coaches have started just talking to the commentators and whatnot, and then the players open up. And I think the players also understanding that being more open and free with things just kind of makes their brand and their image a lot better as well.
Yeah. So then we get into season 3, LCS starts. So how did you hear about this whole LCS thing, and how did you, did you already know ahead of time that you'd be a part of it? What was this like for you on the other side of the curtain?
Knew I was going to be a part of it. Very scared, because big wigs were stepping in, and I've never liked any of that in esports, right? Came from the ground up. We were in our basements, casting in our underwear for whatever ESEA Cups when they happened in Dallas. But I always felt like there would be too many changes too quick, and it was just going to be like, we have done this for years as producers, so this is what we'll do with the LCS. Yeah. But the team they brought in was amazing, and the LCS turned out way better than I ever thought it would.
Yeah, I mean that was my. I had similar concerns. I was like, this is crazy. Like Red's bringing all this stuff in house.
Yeah.
Like they're getting rid of a lot of the international tournaments. I still kind of miss those a little bit, but so for you, you hear about this. How early did you hear about like, oh, we're going to create a league and all that kind of stuff?
The league was probably just before the end of Worlds when I heard about it. I know it was in the mix. Obviously, creating the league, the rules for the league, and whatnot had been going for quite some time. But I heard about it just before, and I figured it's what we needed to make NA better. But it took a while because the teams were only figuring out really how good they were once they got into it.
Yeah.
Now making each other a lot better. This is one of the best splits we've seen with the most teams jockeying for first. But it took a while, and I think teams didn't really know what they were getting themselves into. So it was a slow start for them as well.
So kind of going back to what you had said a second ago, you hear kind of like that there's like LCS is coming. We're going to bring in this production team. Ariel Horn, a lot of people know who he is. Does a lot of runs so much of the production for all this stuff.
Yeah.
And so many other teams. Was there any kind of like a jarring transition for you? Because again, like you said, you've been from this like pedigree of basement casting and all these little tournaments, and now you've got this guy who's like, no, this is how it runs, this is how it goes, this is what it needs to be. We're going to start at this time, and we run from this time to this time.
Yeah, so when I used to do work in New York City, the first times I was ever in front of a camera, it was very free. It was kind of just start, stop. If you say something, we'll plug a lower third over it and post and whatnot like that. And it was all off. I felt they just knew my tone when I was going to kind of give an inflection and when they gave the lower third and this. And when we got to using the production crew, like, you need to say this word or they will not run the picture. I'm like, all right, now we have to push back a little bit. Like, if I'm going to have to say, these guys do this at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Like, and that's the only time you can run it, that it can't work. It needs to flow. Or they were like, they would come in they would say in our ear, they'd be like, we're going into champion select. We're going into champion select. And we're like, all right, bring it up.
Yeah.
Bring it up. Let it happen. So they were on very hard cuts there that they wanted to start hitting, which took a little bit to meld with each other. But now, you know, they don't even say anything in our ear when champion select comes up. Champion select just comes up. We'll announce it to reference if people need to look back at their screen. But there were a lot of things to iron out in the beginning that kind of scared me.
I know everybody, I think, has seen a lot of these features on how stuff goes behind the scenes. Knows that there's like meetings where you guys talk about story and like script writing and that kind of thing. Again, I feel like a lot of that is very different from even season 2 and like IPLs and that kind of thing, where maybe there wasn't as much, you know, script or teleprompter or whatever. Was that a weird experience for you? Did you feel uncomfortable with that at all?
The teleprompter I thought was going to be weird, but we took to it very quickly. The only thing they wanted to get us to stop doing is like flailing our hands around, something Freak is well known for. But it's still a lot more, you know, structure for him.
Yeah.
He does these. Quickshot has his as well.
Jat, I've seen some videos
Jat
of
has
Jat.
a few.
Yeah.
So there's actually a time when they taped our hands to a table and they made us do an entire segment.
Is this true?
Yeah, that we had to train.
On broadcast or just
No, we had to
behind the
train
scenes?
doing
Okay.
this. Yeah, it was actually, it might be even in the caster thing they just review they just did of me. It's the white background shot where Freak and I are sitting there looking at each other, but our hands are taped to the table. So there were a few things that were hard to get by. Like I said, doing the calls for ins and outs on tosses, and the prompter gave a little bit of trouble in the beginning, but it actually panned out nicely. One thing that has happened since using the prompter a lot, which is a little concerning, but it's still there, is the ability to freestyle situations just completely off the bat. You always want to look back at the prompter to hit a core word, to still make sure that you're following the topic and you're not going to completely negate what your partner's about to say. But when I used to do work in New York City, there would be no prompter. I'd almost have the camera right here. I'd be like, we're here for a tournament at Holiday Heroes. It's going to be this, this, and this. First place gets this. They're giving away Samsung this. They're giving away this. It'll be this. And we're doing this all weekend long. Check it out at blah, blah, blah.com.
Yeah.
And that would be the beginning. Now on the prompter, you kind of don't have those, which actually help to branch out your stories in the game. Yeah. Because your brain would always kind of be going like this, be like, oh, you talked about this topic, hit this. You know, so that's been lost a little bit with the prompter, but the prompter still keeps you on track and hits the stories that matter for the people that are watching, the teams that they like.
So let's sort of wrap up season 3 before we move on to season 4. At the end of season 3, I mean, I remember for me looking back and thinking about, like, I interviewed Faker after the finals, and I was like, this has been a crazy ride. I remember walking into the old studio, right around the corner here, the old brick one.
Yep.
And thinking, like, what is this going to be like? What was it like for you looking at sort of retrospectively after season 3 finished and, like, your whole casting thing? Are you like, this is the dream?
I was wondering where the dream was going to go. That was they're going to start this meeting and tell us we have no money thing. Like,
Yeah.
it was too good to be true. We had sold out some of the craziest places, and we're only going to sell out Staples Center, even crazy, even more to the Sangam Stadium. For that event, the production value and where we went, it made me very happy. But we also learned a lot. Like, the beginning of the event was more for us than it was for the fans, and then we understood that in a very quick 3-0, things are a little lackluster.
Yeah.
So it was a very big learning experience to know that I feel that we could do better. While it was still super awesome, I felt like it was a big stepping stone for us.
So let's move into season 4, just a little bit over a year ago. One of the things, you're a very positive guy, but one of the things that I recall as I was thinking about this interview was that, I believe it was around season 4, maybe the start of it, for about a 6-month period at a time, it felt like you were getting a lot of criticism from the community. And I've seen recently, you know, like, people will give Jack criticism. He comes out and writes a big post about it or explains some stuff that people didn't know. But what was going on behind the scenes for you in season 4? Like, is everything completely fine and same old, or
No.
is this stuff getting to you?
No, the stuff getting to me, no. Season 4 was very difficult for me. Right in the middle of it, my mom passed away. And I took that quite difficult. And I had been taking it difficult because she was battling cancer for quite some time. And mentally, I kind of wasn't taking care of myself. I was worrying about my mother's health. I haven't gone to see the doctor. So that just kind of weighs on you. Nothing's wrong with me. I have a clean bill of health. I've been to the doctor recently.
Right.
But it just weighs on you. And while still, you know, projecting happiness, and I was still a very happy person, those things were in the forefront of my mind and did not allow me to focus. As we talked a little about it earlier, if there's a point in a cast that it can happen commonly, or not commonly, but sometimes, where I'll kind of sound like I wasn't really listening to what my co-commentator was saying, or my co-caster was saying, and it'll sound like I was off page a little bit. And that's because in that moment, I became more of a viewer than a commentator. I'm watching, you know, for my own benefit to see things that I like, which wouldn't be relative to saying to the cast or saying to what my caster was saying. And that would happen a lot because my mind would wander. I'd have more things than just the cast on my mind. So it became quite difficult. And I like what Expecial said recently in one of his vlogs, if it was one, or I was just watching an old one, that people are going to say things, and no matter how it comes out, it's still going to be useful in some sort of way. So I'm always going to look at information, even if the guy's like, you sucked on this, you kept saying Dragon was 7 minutes. You know, maybe I did. Maybe it was a long day, and I was going, and nonchalantly said, Dragon is, 7 minutes now, and it's 6 minutes. I know that. I know Dragon's 7 minutes, but I wasn't focused enough to keep on track with that. And season 4, there was a little too much of that due to the way that I was kind of handling outside issues and whatnot in my personal life. So it did affect my casting, but overall, for the Reddit comments and whatnot, they don't affect my casting, but I do check them out.
Yeah. And without diving too far into this, it's kind of a good time to ask you, I think anybody who's done camera stuff for a long time will be aware of, the times where they've had something really rough happen for them, and they've still had to go out there and cast or do an interview or host an event or something like that and have that energy. How for you, are you able to overcome, a situation where you're very upset, something's going on in your life, and yet you still have to go up there and make sure you're putting on a good show?
I feel it is credit to the person I'm interviewing, to the fans watching as well, to still, put my personal problems on the back burner while I go up and do that. It's almost like the swearing trigger that just gets turned off when you're commentating. As you're commentating, those words just don't fall into place. So there is a way you can kind of just box that out for a quick time. If you're reading Reddit comments and whatnot, it can boil you. That's like one instance where that can just roll over and you won't be able to block it out, because sometimes those crush you. Doe and Monty never read Reddit comments. They will even tell us at events, they're like, why are you guys doing that? Don't do that. because some people can't block out those huge problems, whether it be personal, whether it be Reddit, whether it be something at home, like you were saying. But yeah, it's just something I can do really without thinking about it too much.
Yeah. And it felt like by the end of season 4, it felt like there was a very big change from my perspective, and I think a lot of those comments started to fade away. And I think you casted the finals, correct? Is this true? So you were, and which I think is a really big honor.
It was awesome.
And so for you, what was that path like from going from the place where you said you had a lot of stuff going on, and it started to kind of affect you to being able to man the helm for the final matches of season 4?
Going into the season 4 final matches, I was actually still having a rough time for some reason with story points and whatnot. So I took a back seat in those casts to Joe and Jat. Jat was obviously analyzing. I'd let Joe drive, and then I'd hit some intricate, stats in the middle. Things were just going to be true because there were stats or things we went over during the prep time. But to be able to commentate that event in itself was absolutely amazing. I forget how long we actually prepped for that. We did like a super amount of vocal training. We took a conference room to ourselves on the upper deck of the Sangam Stadium to make sure that we could have, our points down through the first pick of champion select to the last one. We did numerous champion selects to make sure we knew any of the variables coming through. In that room, during that time, I was just like, holy crap, look at how far we've come, I've come, everybody in this room right here, from being so dedicated and, putting so much work into this. That was day 39 on the road, I think. So we were all strung out. There had been arguments. There had been times where it was just stink eye all day long between the casters. And it was, you get that when you're with 40 days with the same person, right? The small things start to bug you. The endurance of that entire stay starts to, wear on you, or the length of the stay starts to wear on you. So it felt really good to have the final moment be so huge, such a great win, not a 3-0, was nice, obviously. And the crowd was everything I'd hoped it would be.
So it sounds like behind the scenes, not everything is super happy all the time between the casters.
That was
the TSM Legends Rebirth. There was that thread on Reddit recently about how we should see a behind-the-scenes reality show of the casters.
That was a one-time thing that we've experienced.
Okay.
The tension that grew within the long period of time that we were together. We would still go out and eat every night. There was no huge arguments that would go from day to day. But when you were in a story meeting, or I would go up to someone and say, are we bringing up this point? I'd be like, no, we're not going to talk about that. It's just like the answers you would get from people sometimes. You're like, all right, we're on take it easy day right now with everyone. So it got fun. But normally everybody, as you saw in the preview recently for my caster spotlight, we're having a super fun time. Everybody's super jovial, and we're always looking to play games together, or just play games with fans. It's great.
I mean, I guess now we've gotten to season 5, current season. We just finished the regular season, playoffs coming up.
So quick.
But what is it, let's sort of talk about your current state. So we've got, what is your relationship with the rest of the casters? Maybe this is a good time since we were just talking about that.
Absolutely.
Because I think it's always kind of fun because everybody sees you guys up on stage together, but people don't know if you're all, like, would a TSM Legends Rebirth show be cool? Are you guys all in a caster house together, like talking to each other and planning out strategies for the next cast?
So previously, like when we all moved to live design and whatnot, which isn't season 5, we wouldn't do these things. It would kind of be like the guys you hang out with, joke around in class, but you wouldn't hang out with outside of school really. Maybe you go for ramen or pho once. Yeah. Now it's so much different. While they're somewhat team building things that we do them way more often, and it's not like you have to do this because it's scheduled. They're like, what do we want to do? Do we want to go to Six Flags? All right, we'll just make it a team building thing so it is etched in on everybody's schedule and we can all go do that. Or do you want to go for dinner? I know a lot of times Chat, his girlfriend, and a few of the casters will go for dinner. I'll usually head home so I can chat with my girlfriend and whatnot after a long day. But there's so much more that we do together in terms of playing games and whatnot. That was one of the things that was almost difficult in the beginning because as a low elo player, I wouldn't really be able to talk to the guys too much, about my games, get information about them. They would be kind of like, well, you made this mistake and this mistake, because they were glaring mistakes.
Right.
Now, as I play, ranked fives with the rest of, Kobe and Jat and High and those guys recently, there's just much more, in-depth chat we can have about the game, and much more we can go into about talking about things outside the game. Because if it's all about work, then you're not going to be really good friends. You're just going to be guys that talk about League of Legends.
You are often paired with an analyst. I think a lot of people tend to say, like, oh, Jat and Kobe, they know stuff about the game. Rivington makes the game hype and super fun. But do you ever feel frustrated with that? Would you rather be like the guy that people are, because I think a lot of people maybe say, like, oh, Rivington's game knowledge or whatever, like maybe you'll make a mistake on the cast, and then a comment somewhere on Reddit or in Twitch chat will probably be like, oh, Rivington doesn't know anything about the game.
Yeah.
How do you feel about sort of that public perception, or are you like, this is the role that I have, and like Kobe has his?
I love my role. I love where it is. My any facts that I have will come from stats. Anytime that I mess up, I usually know that I mess up. But one thing I've always told myself is people don't want to hear you apologize. I mean, sometimes they do if you really mess up. You're like, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to say frog, and I meant to say peke or something. Yeah. But I actually am the one who is almost like too selfless in the cast. And I feel like that makes me mess up, because there will be times when I'm saying something and I'll see that Kobe or Jat wants to tap in. I'll be like, I have to end my sentence. So I end my sentence, and they're like, what the hell word did Riv just use?
Yeah.
He doesn't even know the English language.
Yeah.
And I'm like, damn, I should have just taken my time and done that. So me trying to like change my golf swing, I think affects me a little too much sometimes. And even I've heard Joe tell me sometimes, he's like, when they're tapping, just finish your sentence. Don't feel like you have to stop. Even D-Man's told me. And I'm like, yeah, I'm too selfless in the cast sometimes, but it's not their fault. That's my fault. So that is actually the most, the recent reason for like a most common mess up that you would hear is that I'll be kind of selfless and let them take it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't, it doesn't affect me that much. I feel like it'll happen more, obviously, at a 5-hour day. It's a little difficult to keep the mouth in the same position you need it to be for every word, but doesn't worry me any bit, and I feel like my casting has gotten extremely good this year.
Yeah. I mean, let's talk about that too. Where do you think you are as a caster? Because I imagine after doing this for so long and all this kind of thing, that if I were in your shoes, I'd be like, I'm a god caster. No one can compare to this. Look how long I've been doing this.
Absolutely.
I've casted more than anybody other than Freak. I think you and Freak the longest standing league caster. So how do you feel? What criticisms do you have, besides maybe the one you just mentioned, about your casting, if any? Maybe you think that's the only thing that you have to work on.
I just had something I was thinking of. I do absolutely have criticisms of my casting, and I'm always trying to improve them. Most recently, one of the things that actually really hit my casting, as we were saying in the season previously, was team fights. I couldn't button up team fights, get into team fights, or do them right. So this season, I said, all right, I'm going to look at a lot of different casters. You take Joe, take D-Man, take myself, and maybe take, Dom, take Seda, take Pastry Time, a few of the guys that do play-by-play. And I looked at their fights. And what I did with those is I lined them all up, and then I just took the words that they were saying, and I was like, all right, the first word he said was, they're going to Baron. So it was kind of a positional move. So it was like positional, objective, skill name, summoner name, this, and I did that for 4 or 5 fights, and I would look at what their pattern was. Was it a positional move first? Do they name a champion, which I found does become one of the better ways to start calling it. Pick out that DPS or pick out the tank that's trying to find the DPS, and then people have an idea of how to get around the fight. Then what was in the middle? Was it action? Did they actually pause and add an intensity word, or a word that lulls the fight so you can assess it and see what's happening for yourself, and more like background noise? So I went this year really in depth into my casting and how intricate it was for fights and how to get in and out of them better.
Yeah. Sounds like you had sort of CLG's problem from the start of this, where you just couldn't figure out how to team fight.
Just couldn't figure out how to team fight. I had to get in. Yeah. I had to hit my slump first.
Yeah. Well, that's the CLG formula. I couldn't resist making the joke. Sorry. So anyway, so now you've got some things you want to work on with your casting. How do you feel about the broadcasts and the shows and all that kind of thing? Do you feel like, I think the reason I bring these kind of questions up is because I feel like we're just almost 3 years done with LCS, and I think I imagine, and even for myself, there's a feeling of like, okay, well, we've worked out a lot of the kinks. What goes next? Like, where do we go from here? And I'm curious what you think is next for the broadcast, for the show. Like, where is there a place to improve? And is there a better area for casters to be involved in the show? I mean, what's next?
What's next? I'm not sure. I love the path we're on, and I think it's only going to get better. The way we have structured League of Legends is still growing the teams, right? It's still making better brands for the teams. It's still allowing the teams to do more for themselves. This year we see 4 top teams as well, with now stories about their in-depth house lives and whatnot. They're growing their brands. I think everything in this ecosystem is growing at a perfect rate. It was almost too fast in the beginning. We're like, oh my God, what is this? It's kind of like you open your business and you answer the phone, you're like, hi, we'd like to order this. And then all your phones start ringing. Yeah. You're like, where are we going to go with this? How are we going to catch up? But once we did, we figured out really what needed to be done, started to, clean up the spectator a little bit, make it easier on the eyes, just easier for anybody to take in. And one thing I would like to see, obviously it would be a step back, but I want to see some kind of transition into if league games were commentated like they used to be. I think that would be very cool to kind of hear a league game with a radio piece in your ear, like you're listening to an old school baseball game or something. It was just like a one-off that we did with cast.
Sort of like a radio broadcast. Yeah, do you ever want to see, how fun was it for you doing that, the IRF event or earlier? Because it seems like, one thing that I've appreciated, I think, is that it feels like LCS is taking itself a little bit less seriously lately. And certainly the games are still hype and everything, but I do enjoy the fact that you guys have had a chance to do stuff like that. So what was that experience like for you?
It was absolutely crazy. It's really fun to play modes like that and at least get like they wouldn't let us play it fully in the beginning, so we couldn't have like extra strats. So they even make it hard on us, and we get our first try. But it's amazing to know that we also have that atmosphere, like you said, to let loose, have a little fun, not take ourselves so seriously. It's part of that's actually like one of our mottos at Riot is don't take yourself too seriously, stay humble, stay hungry. And it works. It's something that the community loves. We love doing from the community. Who doesn't like doing stupid stuff in game modes? But yeah, I feel like that direction is something we need to keep going for.
One of the things I had to ask you, and I feel like you, maybe out of anyone I've met in esports, smiles the most often. You are always smiling, always so happy. Broadcast is always happening. Where does this positive attitude come from?
My mom. My mom was an awesome person. She always taught me to do right. She was a fiery Italian woman that would keep me in line. I'm a person that holds doors for people, still got the chivalry, but it's just, there's no reason to dwell on things, right? That's one thing. That's also one thing I learned from my mom. She was a dweller. She could remember anything and bring it up. So I guess it's one thing I turned off in my head. Yeah. But being able to introduce random things that make you smile, random things that make you laugh. You'll probably hear me make noises. If we're walking down the road and a car goes by us, I might go, right? Why not? I think I was getting makeup the other day, and Cassandra, our makeup lady, said, you're one of those people that just says what people are normally thinking, and it's awesome that I get to hear it. And I was like, thanks. Yeah, I just like to live life randomly, smiling.
Live life randomly.
Why not? I mean, like I was just throwing crap on the table, right? Yeah. I missed everything I threw on the table recently before this interview. But he was like,
badges, wallets,
you like to throw stuff. And I was like, why not? If I didn't throw it, I probably would have been like, if I threw it, would I have hit the table? But now I know.
Yeah. Very good, very good. It's a remarkable outlook, I think, that probably really helps with your cast and sort of the energy that you're able to bring. So,
yeah.
Hey, I do want to ask, as we're sort of winding down, what does the future hold for you? You've been casting again with Freak, longest casters for League. You've been doing casting forever. I think a lot of people start to wonder, like, okay, do we go into production, or like, do I go to game design or whatever? We saw D-Man and Joe take a step away from League a while back. Do you just want to keep casting League forever, or have you thought about this stuff? I mean, what is in the future for you?
So I have thought about it. Right now it's League. Being here from the infancy, like I said, like fourth person on the account team. I was coming in with another one, so I was like third, fourth, you could say. Yeah. And there were like 20 people on player support at the time. So having that and to grow with that, I can't not see it kind of to the end. And maybe the end goes too far. And like I like what Jat said in his is it's kind of when you stay relevant. You know, if you're not relevant, there's no point in forcing that. But I know I'm going to be in front of a camera. I'll have a microphone in my hand, whether I'm hanging onto a pole and be like, "There's a hurricane right now," right?
Yeah.
If that's what it comes to, or I find an agent and I don't even know what that world's about yet and where I can go with an agent after all this is said and done. But it's League of Legends right now. Like there's so much dedication that I've put into it. I wouldn't want to walk away.
You never look at CS:GO because I mean that scene is blowing up like crazy right now.
There was
right?
this much jealousy when Joe and D-Man got to go back and cast it because I obviously still love playing. You can't hate your roots.
Yeah.
It's where I came from. Counter-Strike is the game that got me where I am today, and the ability to be an outgoing person, have that competitive edge, and understand kind of the aspect of competitive gaming from both sides as a player and as a commentator. So there was a little bit of it, but I can stick to just playing it.
I get so many emails and tweets and that kind of thing about people asking how they get into esports, how they get into, they want to be a player, they want to be an interviewer, they want to be a commentator, and so it's always good to ask people when I interview them. I mean, do you have any advice for commentators or how people can get in? It's kind of a weird scene. League is kind of a weird scene in that so much of this is run by these sort of stable leagues.
So I'll do two here. I'll do how to become a commentator, which is I like this answer. It's really fast. I thought about it for a while, and it's get your own style, but do that through small phrases. Like in Counter-Strike, and Freak does this too with his words, is you quip a quick bit of words, like they're coming around the corner. Those little things, like they're coming around the corner to go top on A site and plant the bomb. They're coming around the corner. During that time, I get to figure out what I want to say in intensity. Now, they're coming around the corner may not be what the word you say. I was talking to a kid about this the other day, and he's like, what if I said, and they're making pancakes? I'm like, if and they're making pancakes is the way you start to structure your cast, then when you actually go to the cast, just fit something else in there. Yeah. You're like, and they're making frags right now. They do have a few more flashbangs. And what? You had all that time to think about it before. So get a style. If you like to listen to somebody, figure out what theirs is, mold it to yours. Getting into esports, I said it before, it's bridges, building bridges. The fact that events like MLG that League of Legends was going to recently, and the fact that League was at PAX and everybody got to get together was where you built bridges. And it's hard in the beginning. It'll feel like there's almost no way to get to the front of that bridge because everybody's backstage or everybody's already talking to the players in a group that you just wouldn't fit in with. Walk up to that group, or previously tweet at them with something and they'll be like, hey, I tweeted you, blah, blah, blah. I actually have this idea, and you never know what can happen. If you don't try, then it's never going to happen. My first bridge that I built was on Ventrilo, and then it grew into everything. However, that bridge was the one that needed to be burned, so be careful. It's some that you walk over. They may be a little rickety.
Yeah.
But yeah, bridges are the biggest thing. I think understanding who will actually talk to you and give you the credit you deserve is very big as well.
Well, last question here, and I know you just kind of gave some advice, but I think Jat recently has come out and sort of said I'll try to inform a lot of people about any kind of preconceptions people have about the cast and about him as a caster. And I'm just curious if there's anything that you would like to say to any of the fans out there, anything that you think they should know. It doesn't even need to be serious. Maybe it's that Freak literally never wears pants on any of the casts, like anything like that for the fans out there watching you every weekend.
Oh, the Freak one, yeah. He enjoys when you groan at his puns. Don't do that. That's the laughter for him.
Okay.
Don't do that. For myself, I can't thank everybody enough for the love, the amount of people that come into my stream and say, thank you for doing this. The amount of people that come up and want to touch my beard. You're crazy, but I love you as well. I said it before, not with you, but when I've been commentating and whatnot, and I'm doing what I'm doing because people want to watch. People like the game on the other end. And I need to thank you for that. You guys thank us all the time, but it's a thank you that goes out to the viewers, to the people that put in the time to turn that on and watch us and enjoy the stories that we tell. So a really big thanks to all the viewers for making this possible and enjoying the game with us.
Rivington, thank you so much for the
Thank you so
interview.
much,
Great to
Travis.
sit down with you and get some insights into what it's been like for you these past couple of, this past decade, I guess,
Yeah.
for you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. For everyone else, you can check out the rest of our coverage of all things League of Legends at GameSpot.com/LOL.